Let's begin with a truth that's so often overlooked, yet it sits at the center of a woman's lived experience. Her body remembers what her mind tries to forget. You might not see it, you might not hear it, but if you're attentive, if you're truly present, you will feel it. You see, the female body is not just a biological organism. It is an emotional archive. It holds on to experiences, especially the ones that hurt, confuse, or leave her feeling unsafe. Unlike men, who tend to compartmentalize pain, women are neurologically wired to feel it in the body, and not in a metaphorical sense, quite literally. There's a branch of science called somatic psychology, which explores how trauma is stored in the body. And studies have shown that women, due to differences in brain wiring, hormone processing, and social conditioning, are more likely to internalize trauma into their physical experience. What this means is when a woman says she's tired, disconnected, or numb, it's not always because of a bad day or surface level stress. Sometimes her body is holding the weight of years she never got to process. The hips, for example, are known to hold unresolved emotions, especially grief, sexual trauma, or unexpressed anger. This is why in yoga or therapeutic practices, women often cry when doing deep hip opening stretches. It's not weakness. It's the body finally releasing what words never could. The same goes for the shoulders, the stomach, the chest, places where tension hides, places where shame lives. Now imagine a woman entering a romantic relationship carrying that silently. You may think she's guarded or moody or inconsistent, but in reality, her body is still in defense mode. Her nervous system has been trained, possibly from a young age, not to trust, not to relax, not to be fully open, because the last time she did, something went wrong. Maybe it was a betrayal. Maybe it was manipulation. Maybe it was emotional abandonment. Whatever it was, her body took note. And it adjusted to survive. That's why you can't force a woman into openness. Not physically, not emotionally. If she doesn't feel safe, her body will remain locked. You might get a smile, you might get words of agreement, but her body will say no in ways you may never understand unless you're listening, truly listening. And when you try to push past that no, even with the best intentions, her body responds as if it's being attacked. This is the psychology of protection. Her body's wisdom overrides her logic, and this is where so many men get confused. They wonder, she says she likes me, but she seems distant. Or, we're together, but something's missing. What's missing isn't attraction or affection. It's trust at the level of the nervous system. That's a different kind of intimacy. It's not something you talk her into. It's something you earn with consistency, emotional maturity, and presence. Presence is everything when a man is truly present, not performing, not pretending, but grounded. A woman's body starts to soften. She starts to breathe differently around him. Her shoulders release. Her laughter becomes fuller. She touches her face more or plays with her hair, not because she's trying to flirt, but because she's subconsciously letting her guard down. Her body begins to say, I'm safe here. I don't have to keep my armor on. But if you're not paying attention, you'll miss all of this. And if you're dismissive, if you think this is too emotional or too complicated, you'll never understand the truth that a woman's desire, her love, her full aliveness is deeply linked to her sense of safety. That doesn't mean she's weak. It means she's built differently. And here's the difficult part for some men to hear. If you want access to her body, you must first earn access to her peace. Not through manipulation, not through charm, but through a track record of being present and safe. That's the gateway. That's the difference between shallow attraction and deep, soulful connection. So what can you do right now to honor this truth? You slow down. You watch her body language before you respond to her words. You listen without interrupting. You respect the pauses, the hesitations, the silences, not as rejection, but as signals of what she needs. You show her that you're not here to take, you're here to understand. And if you do that long enough, consistently enough, her body will begin to respond in ways that words cannot describe. Not because you manipulated her, but because she felt seen, not just as a body, but as a being. Let this be the shift in your mindset. A woman's body is not your entitlement. It is a sacred instrument that holds years of story, emotion, and resilience. If she gives it to you, It's not because she's weak. It's because she finally feels safe enough to surrender. And if you don't understand what it cost her to get to that place, you don't deserve to be there. So here's the truth. If you cannot be trusted with her silence, you will never be trusted with her surrender. Let that sink in. Let's talk about something that shocks most men once they understand it. A woman's emotions are not just feelings. They are the chemical consequences of a biological cycle. And that cycle plays a far deeper role in shaping her thoughts, choices, moods, and relationships than most people, especially men, realize. Men are often wired to seek logic, patterns, cause, and effect explanations. That's a strength, but it can also become a blind spot because when you deal with a woman, you're not just dealing with a single mood in a moment. You're engaging with an entire hormonal orchestra that subtly shifts the way she sees herself, sees you, and even sees love. This isn't to say women are irrational. No, far from it. But the lens through which they perceive reality is fluid because their hormonal state changes throughout their cycle. Estrogen rises, then falls. Progesterone kicks in. Testosterone spikes and drops. Oxytocin surges. And cortisol, the stress hormone, can amplify everything, especially if trust is low or if she feels emotionally unsafe. Let me put it like this. What she feels about you today may not match how she felt about you yesterday, not because she's lying, not because she's playing games, but because her internal world has shifted. That internal world is real. It's not imagined. It's not just hormones. In the dismissive way some men say it, it's her lived experience. Understanding this is not only mature, it's powerful because it gives you insight into how to show up with presence and compassion, not confusion and reaction. Most men are reactive. She pulls away a little, they get defensive. She becomes quiet. They assume it's about them and they start chasing fixing or withdrawing. But a wise man steps back and studies her rhythm. Here's what's even more fascinating. During her ovulation phase, when estrogen peaks and she feels most confident, radiant, and magnetic, her energy will shift dramatically. She might dress differently. She may want more intimacy. Her body language becomes more open. She may even flirt more with you without fully realizing it. This isn't manipulation. It's biology. And then a few days later, as progesterone rises, she might retreat. She needs more rest, more reassurance, more gentleness. If you don't understand this shift, you'll misread it. You'll think something's wrong. You'll assume she's lost interest. And in that misinterpretation, you might react in ways that cause a disconnect when all she needed was understanding. This cycle, her hormonal rhythm, is not something she consciously chooses. It's something she manages, often silently. Most women are taught to hide it, to suppress it, to pretend that they're the same every day. But the truth is, she's not. Her body is constantly transitioning emotionally, physiologically, energetically. And the men who respect that are the ones she begins to trust at the core. Now let's connect this back to desire. Her desire is not linear. You cannot expect her to want you the same way every single day. And if you mistake her shifting desire for rejection, you'll sabotage the relationship. A man who can hold space for her emotional weather is rare and valuable because it means she doesn't have to perform or apologize for being what she naturally is, cyclical. Even her oxytocin levels, the hormone responsible for bonding and connection, are tied to how safe and nurtured she feels. This is why touch presence and emotional attunement matter more to her than grand gestures or hollow words. If your presence creates more anxiety than peace, she won't attach, she'll retreat. But if she feels emotionally safe in your presence, her body begins to respond. Desire becomes natural. Playfulness returns. Intimacy deepens. She doesn't have to try because her body wants to engage with you. This is not about being perfect. It's not about tracking every hormone on a calendar. It's about emotional intelligence, about understanding that a woman is not emotionally chaotic. She's biologically complex, and that complexity deserves respect, not ridicule. Too often, men fall into one of two traps. Either they try to control her emotions, or they walk away from them. Both paths lead to disconnection. But the man who studies her patterns, who honors her need for rhythm and emotional grace, he becomes the one she can't forget, because he meets her not just at the surface, but at the core. You want to be unforgettable. Learn her, study her, not with suspicion, but with reverence. Be the one man in her life who didn't call her crazy when she was overwhelmed. Be the one who didn't accuse her of being too much when she needed support. That's where real connection lives. That's what creates soul, deep intimacy. That's what earns her loyalty. So if you're serious about understanding women, if you're truly committed to being a strong, grounded, emotionally intelligent man, then hear this never: mock her shifts, master them, because her hormonal changes are not your enemy. They're your map. And if you follow that map with patience and presence, you'll uncover a kind of love and connection most men never get to experience. A woman isn't complicated. She's layered. Learn to read her layers, and you'll never have to chase her love again. Let's talk about a reality few men are aware of: a woman's body holds memory. I'm not talking about memory in the cognitive sense, like remembering a phone number or a name, but cellular memory, emotional memory, somatic memory. Her body literally keeps score of every emotional experience she's ever lived through, especially those tied to intimacy, trust, and connection. Here's where it gets interesting. While men often compartmentalize, a woman's nervous system is wired for integration. That means what you say, how you touch her, how you respond to her silence or her chaos. It doesn't just fade away after the moment passes. It stays with her. Her body processes it. And more than that, it stores it. Now, think about that for a second. If you're in her life and she lets you close, not just physically, but emotionally, you are stepping into a sacred space. One that's been shaped by everything she's ever experienced: love, trauma, neglect, shame, validation, joy. All of it lives there underneath the surface. This is why some women suddenly pull away after a deeply vulnerable moment. It's not because she changed her mind about you. It's because her body remembered a moment when she trusted someone before and got burned. And unless you understand that, you'll think it's your fault. You'll get insecure. You'll start chasing validation, and that's the beginning of the disconnect. A woman's body remembers tone, energy, pressure, pace. Whether you were present or distracted. Whether your touch came from desire or dominance. Whether your words came from your ego or your empathy. All of it leaves an imprint. This is especially true in intimacy. And I don't just mean sex. I mean the space between you where she lets her guard down, where she shows you the little girl inside, the one who still carries old wounds and fragile hopes. If you rush that space, dismiss it, or make it transactional, you teach her body not to trust you, even if you say all the right things. Here's something most men never realize. The way you handle her body communicates what you believe about her soul. If you handle her with respect, patience, curiosity, not just hunger, you send a signal to her subconscious that says, you are safe, you are seen. You are not just a body. I see the person living inside of it. That's what unlocks real desire, not lust, not domination, but reverence. That's when her body stops bracing and starts blooming. That's when her nervous system relaxes and says, this man isn't here to take from me. He's here to honor me. Do you know how rare that is? Most women have been conditioned to expect one of two things from men: control or consumption. Either he wants to own her, or he wants to use her. That's the unconscious fear most women carry, even when they won't say it out loud. So when you show up differently, when you see her body as a sacred text, not a trophy, you break that programming. And that kind of man doesn't just get her attention. He earns her devotion. But this also means something else. It means your own energy has to be clean. You can't carry unresolved anger, shame, or insecurity into her space and expect her to trust you. She will feel it, even if you say nothing. Her body is wired to sense danger. And if your energy doesn't feel safe, her walls will go up. This is why self-mastery matters: emotional stillness, restraint, the ability to sit with her intensity without trying to fix it or flee from it. When she senses that you can hold space for her storm without getting swept away, she will trust you with the most vulnerable parts of her, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But if you rush in with your ego, your agenda, your need for control, she'll feel it. And her body will protect her by shutting down. It might look like withdrawal or anger or confusion. But underneath, it's just her system saying, I don't feel safe here. This is the part many men get wrong. They think attraction is about saying the right lines, building the right body, having the right car. But for a woman who's awake, attuned, evolved. It's about something else entirely. It's about how her body feels in your presence. Does she feel relaxed or tense, open or guarded, grounded or anxious? These are the questions her nervous system is answering before her mind ever decides if she likes you. So what does this mean for you? It means your presence is your power, not your performance, not your promises, your presence. That quiet, grounded energy that tells her, I am here with you. I'm not in a rush. I'm not afraid of your depth, and I'm not here to take, I'm here to witness. When she feels that, her body begins to respond. She softens. She trusts. She lets you in, not just into her space, but into her essence. And that's the place most men never reach. Not because women don't want them there, but because they never learned how to be still enough to be trusted with it. So let me leave you with this. If you want her to surrender, don't demand it. Deserve it. Because the deepest parts of a woman don't open to pressure. They open to presence. Let's talk about something most people don't even realize they're witnessing when it comes to a woman's behavior, especially around someone she desires, but doesn't want to reveal it to. It's called controlled proximity. That subtle yet intentional effort to orbit your space without explicitly landing in it. And make no mistake, it's psychological. It's layered. And it speaks volumes if you know what to look for. When a woman is attracted to you but isn't ready or willing to show it overtly, she'll often try to manage how close she is to you without making it obvious. She'll place herself near you repeatedly in social situations, but with just enough distance to make it seem accidental. She'll find a reason to sit beside you, walk behind you, enter a room you're in, even if she doesn't have to be there. That's not a coincidence. That's design. Why does this happen? It's about tension. Attraction lives in tension. And when a woman is feeling drawn to you, especially if she hasn't consciously processed it yet, her nervous system is trying to resolve that tension. Her body wants closeness. Her ego wants protection. Her soul wants to see if you'll notice. And so she flirts with proximity, hoping the space between you will speak what her lips won't say. This isn't manipulative, it's instinctual for many women, especially those who've been hurt before or conditioned to suppress their own desires. Indirect expression becomes a survival mechanism. They don't want to be rejected, misjudged, or seen as too forward. So they communicate through presence, through nearness, through environment. A woman who wants to be seen but not exposed will use spaces or language. Here's the irony: most men miss this entirely. They're waiting for a bold signal, a compliment, a direct question, a sexual innuendo. But attraction doesn't always show up with a spotlight. Sometimes it shows up as subtle patterns, the way she lingers when others leave, the way her path somehow intersects with yours more than it logically should, the way her laughter seems to surface when you speak, even if what you said wasn't that funny. That's not performance. That's presence signaling interest. But here's where it gets deeper. A woman who's in this space of trying to hide her desire is often in an internal battle. She's negotiating with herself. Her feminine essence may long to express, to connect, to surrender to attraction. But her logical mind is scanning for safety, for evidence, for assurance that you're not like the others who didn't know what to do with her vulnerability. So the proximity is a test. Can you feel her energy without her having to announce it? Can you sense what's underneath her casual words, her relaxed posture, her polite smile? Are you tuned in, or are you too distracted by surface level noise? A truly grounded man reads between the lines, not because he's trying to game her, but because he understands the language of nuance. He respects her need to protect herself while still honoring her desire to connect. He doesn't press. He doesn't probe. He doesn't call her out in a way that embarrasses her. Instead, he holds space. And when the moment is right, he responds, not with pressure, but with presence. This is a form of emotional intelligence most men are never taught. They think masculinity is about making the first move. And yes, sometimes it is. But more often, masculinity is about perceiving when the first move has already been made energetically. When she's already extended an invitation through her behavior, and now she's watching to see if you'll meet her halfway with discernment and strength, not ego. Now, let me be very clear: proximity doesn't always mean desire. Not every woman who stands near you is attracted to you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm pointing to is a pattern, repetition, intuition. When there's a noticeable consistency to how she gravitates toward your space, but always with a veil of neutrality, That's not random. That's deliberate. That's a woman trying to stay hidden while hoping you'll see her anyway. So what do you do with this insight? You honor it. You don't rush in or call it out like it's some tactical game. You become still. You observe. You attune. And then with gentleness, you give her space to feel safe enough to drop the mask. Because when a woman feels seen without being exposed, her walls don't just lower, they dissolve. That's when true connection happens, not when you chase her or interrogate her emotions, but when you recognize the dance she's performing with herself. When you see that her silence is speaking, her presence is whispering, her nearness is confessing. And you treat that confession with the reverence it deserves. Because attraction, in its purest form, is sacred. It's not always loud. It's not always obvious, but it's always felt. And if you're the kind of man who can feel what isn't spoken, you won't need her to say a word. So remember this, the most powerful invitations aren't shouted. They're whispered through presence. If you want to be the man she reveals her heart to, you must be the man who recognizes her quiet desire, respects her space, and answers her subtle call with grounded, patient strength. That's not just emotional maturity. That's masculine mastery,